So we settle in, you can feel your body beginning to grow heavy in the most pleasant way in our time together tonight. There is nothing to examine, nothing to understand, only the gentle rhythm of a story. But the place this story takes us is a place that was anything but pleasant, a world where comfort was a currency if you could afford. We're going to drift into the life of a medieval prostitute. And the story begins, as most days do, with the simple, brutal act of waking up. Before we drift too far, if you feel a connection to this place, you're welcome to leave a quiet like or subscribe. Think of it not as a task, but as leaving a soft footprint in the sand before you continue your journey inward. And as a final whisper before we begin, feel free to leave a comment with your city and what time it is for you now. It's a quiet way of knowing we're all here in this space together, listening in the dark. I read them all. All right. Let the shadows in your room grow long and soft. Maybe you can hear the faint sound of your own breathing. And together, let's allow the story to begin. The first thing you become aware of is not the light, but the cold. It's a damp, insistent cold that has worked its way through the thin wool of your blanket and settled deep into your bones. It's the kind of cold that feels like it's rising from the earth itself, up through the grimy floorboards, through the lumpy sack of straw you call a mattress, and directly into your back. For a moment, you just lie there, a prisoner of the chill, trying to remember a time you ever felt truly warm. The memory doesn't come. Slowly you force your eyes open. The light that greets you is a miserable, watery grey. It leaks in through a single, small opening in the wall, an unglazed window that in the summer lets in flies and in the winter lets in this bone-aching draught. There's no glass, of course. That's for churches and the homes of rich merchants. This opening is covered by a piece of stretched, oiled linen, which is supposed to keep the worst of the weather out while letting a little light in. It just makes the morning look jaundiced and sick. You shift, and the straw beneath you rustles with a dry, defeated sound. It's not just straw. It's a compressed cake of old, broken stalks, dust and things you'd rather not think about. You can feel a sharp stalk poking you insistently in the hip. Some historians like to imagine a certain rustic charm to a strop owly Aussie, but you know the truth. It smells faintly of mildew and mouse, and it's a paradise for fleas. You've learned to accept the constant. No leather lich is just another part of being alive. This is your bed in your room. Except it's not your room. To your left, less than an arm's length away, is another lumpy from under another thin blanket. That's Eleanor. You can hear her soft, wheezing breath. Beyond her, another shape. Catherine. Her occasional cough is what probably started to pull you from sleep in the first place. This single, cramped space, no bigger than a rich man's pantry, is home to four of you. The fourth Agnes indentation in the glue, driven by a nervous energy you don't quite understand. The air in the room is thick. It's a cocktail of stale sweat, unwashed bodies, the damp wool of your blankets, and the faint, ever-present miasma of the street outside, a smell of wood smoke, mud, and something vaguely foul from the direction of the communal privy. You take a slow breath and immediately regret it. Your mouth. It tastes awful. It's a thick, soft film coating your tongue and the roof of your mouth, a graveyard of yesterday's stale bread and kale. This taste is the true herald of the morning, more reliable than the distant clang of the first church bell. Use it up, swinging your legs over the side of the pallet. Your bare feet touch the floorboards, and you flinch at the splintery, icy shock. You stay there for a moment, hunched over, your blanket pulled tight around your shoulders. You can see your breath. A small, white cloud in the grey air. There's a debate among scholars today about the concept of privacy in your time. They wonder if the constant, crushing proximity to others was a source of communal strength or a relentless torment. From where you sit, listening to Catherine S. hacking cough and smelling Eleanor S. sleeps wet. You can tell them it's mostly the second one. But there is also the simple fact that a cold room with 4 bodies in it is marginally warmer than a cold room with just one. It's a miserable calculation, but it's the only one you've got. A floorboard creaks outside the door. That will be the brothel keeper's wife, starting her morning rounds. Her footsteps are heavy, purposeful. A reminder that even this cold, miserable awakening is on someone else's schedule. Time to get up. Time to do something about the absolute catastrophe that is your mouth. The day hasn't even truly begun, and you're already exhausted. You push yourself to your feet. The cold floorboards a brutal welcome to the next 12 hours of your life. The real work is about to begin. You move with a familiar, weary shuffle toward a small, rickety shelf in the corner of the room. This is the closest thing you have to a washstand. On it sits a wooden bucket filled with yesterday's water, a thin film of dust floating on its surface. Beside it is a small, unglazed clay pot, no bigger than your palm. This little pot holds the secret to facing the day. You dip a finger into the bucket. The water is shocking, biting cold, that makes you gasp. You splash a little on your face, not for cleanliness, but just to feel awake. The cold is a brutal slap, but a necessary one. Now for the real task. You pick up a small, folded square of rough linen cloth. It's stained and has been used many times, but it's yours. You uncap the little clay pot. Inside is a grayish, grainy powder. It's a mixture you all contribute to, a communal supply of tooth powder. Mostly it's salt. Coarse, gritty salt. Mixed in with it is some dried, crushed sage, which gives it a faint, herby smell that does little to mask the sharp salinity. There might be a bit of powdered charcoal mixed in, which is said to be excellent for whitening, though you suspect it just turns your mouth grey for an hour. You wrap the linen cloth tightly around your index finger, dip it into the cold water to make it damp, and then press your cloth-covered finger into the powder. A good amount of the gritty stuff sticks. This is your toothbrush and your toothpaste all in one. You take a breath, brace yourself, and bring your finger to your mouth. The process is not gentle. It's a scouring. You rub the salty, abrasive paste vigorously against your teeth, back and forth. You can feel the grit scraping against the enamel, a rough, unpleasant sensation. You work your way around, pressing hard, especially on the front teeth, the ones that will be seen. The goal isn't comfort, and it certainly isn't health in the way anyone today would understand it. The goal is to fold. First, to physically scrape away the foul-tasting film that has built up overnight. Second, and more importantly, to combat the smell. This is the central, unglamorous battle of your life. A pretty face can be ruined in an instant by bad breath, and in your line of work, that's a direct hit to your earnings. You scrub and you scrape, and your gums begin to feel tender and dry. Sometimes they bleed a little, adding a faint metallic taste to the salty, herbal bitterness in your mouth. You've learned to ignore it. A little blood is better than the alternative. You know from grim experience that poor diet, the constant starch of Brindale, and the sicknesses that sweep through the city all conspire to create a breath that could wilt flowers, but they rarely capture the sheer, embarrassing intimacy of this one consequence. It's the invisible plague you fight every single morning. You pause for a moment, fingers still in your mouth, and a memory surfaces. A merchant from out of town once told you that in some lands, they mix in powdered bone or even crushed oyster shells for a better polish. This is one of those strange, niche facts of your world that the quest for a clean-feeling mouth could lead you to putting ground-up pottery or brick dust in it. The thought makes you shudder. Salt and sage are bad enough. The idea of scrubbing your teeth with what is essentially and seems like a fast track to having no teeth at all. You finish your work, a final vigorous scrub on the inside of your cheeks and your tongue. You lean over the bucket on the floor, the same one Eleanor will wash her feet in later and spit. A grey, gritty, foamy mess clouds the water. You rinse your mouth with a sip of the icy water, swishing it around, the cold making your raw gums ache. You spit again. The awful morning taste is gone, replaced by the clean, sharp sting of salt. It's an improvement, but it's not pleasant. Scoured clean, but at a cost. Historians today still argue about the true purpose and perception of these dental habits. Was this a rudimentary form of health care, a genuine, if misguided, attempt to prevent decay, or was it almost entirely a cosmetic, professional requirement, especially for women in your position? You know the answer for yourself. You never think about preventing a tooth from rotting. You only think about making your smile passable for the next client. The health of the tooth is irrelevant. The appearance, the smell of it, the presentation, that is everything. You've just spent the first painful minutes of your day polishing a tool of your trade. A tool that feels a little more worn, a little more fragile, after every single cleaning. You run your tongue over your teeth. They feel clean for now, but you can also feel the tiny imperfections, the little ridges and edges where the enamel is slowly wearing away. The smile is ready, but you're acutely aware of its fragility. With the ordeal of your morning mouth scouring complete, you turn your attention to the next performance, getting dressed. There's a single wooden peg hammered into the wall that serves as your wardrobe. On it hangs your work attire. It's not a choice, it's a uniform, and a very specific one at that. You reach for the first layer, a chemise made of coarse, unbleached linen. It's a simple, T-shaped garment that reaches down to your knees. It's also probably the most comfortable thing you'll wear all day. You pull it over your head, the rough fabric scratching your skin. It smells faintly of you, a familiar, human scent that is quickly about to be buried under layers of regulation. Next comes the kirtle, the main dress. It's made of a sturdy, functional wool, dyed a specific, conspicuous color. In your city, the law dictates that women of your profession must wear striped clothing, a visual marker that sets you apart from the honest women. Your kirtle is a dull, muddy red with vertical stripes of a faded yellow. The colors are meant to be eye-catching, but the cheap dyes have long since lost their vibrancy, settling into a sort of permanent, weary state. You've seen women in other towns who are forced to wear hoods of a certain shape or bells on their shoes. It's a constant public decoration of what you are, designed to prevent any respectable man from accidentally mistaking you for his wife. A little bit of state-sponsored public shaming to start your day. You step into the kirtle and begin the tedious process of lacing it up the front. The laces are leather, stiff and worn. You pull them tight, cinching the dress to your body. It's not a corset, not in the way later centuries would know it, but the snug fit is designed to give you a certain shape, a shape deemed desirable. It's restrictive, making deep breaths a bit of an effort. As you tighten the last lace, you can feel the fabric pressing against your ribs. Low-grade reminder of your role. A physical constraint that mirrors the legal and social ones that bind you. Now for the most important piece, the one that causes the most debate among the legal-minded and the church fathers. The headdress. In your district, it's a specific type of striped hood or a brightly colored cap. It must be worn at all times when you're outside your room. It's the final, undeniable signal. You pick yours up. It's a simple linen cap, dyed that same garish, faded yellow as the stripes on your dress. It's a bit greasy from being handled and worn day in and day out. You tie it under your chin. There's a strange and enduring argument that historians will puzzle over for centuries. Were these clothing laws designed to shame and isolate you? Or were they, in a strange, twisted way, a form of protection? The official line is that they protected the public, preventing moral confusion. Some modern thinkers will propose that by clearly marking you, the laws also gave you a certain limited license to operate within your designated space. It meant that as long as you wore the stripes and the cap, you were in a sense a recognized, if despised, part of the city's ecosystem. You don't think about it in such grand terms. You just know that wearing this outfit means you could be whipped or fined for trying to pass as a decent woman. It's not protection, it's branding. You smooth down your dress, the workhorse under your palms. You look at Eleanor, who is now sitting up and blithely starting her own routine. Her kirtle is a faded blue with white stripes. You all look like a strange, sad flock of birds with mismatched, washed-out plumage. There's no glamour here. These are not the silken gowns of a courtesan in a far-off, fantastical court. This is the practical, durable, and deeply uncomfortable uniform of a foot soldier in the city's economy of desire. You glance down at your shoes. They are simple leather-turned shoes, basically slippers with a slightly tougher sole. They are worn thin at the heel, and a loose stitch on the side means you have to be careful not to step in any deep puddles, lest your foot gets soaked with the foul, soupy mud of the street. Everything you own is functional, worn, and second-hand. It has all passed through other lives before coming to you, much like the coins you hope to earn today. You are a walking, talking symbol. Every piece of your clothing screams your profession to the world. It's a heavy costume to wear, and it chafes in more ways than one. But the keeper expects you downstairs. You take one last look around the dim, Cold room. Catherine is still coughing. Eleanor is fumbling with her laces. You are ready. You push open the rough, wooden door and prepare to step out of the relative privacy of your shared misery and into the public performance of the day. The moment you step out of your room, you're in a different world. The narrow, rickety landing is crowded. Other women, dressed in their own versions of the uniform, more stripes, more loud, faded colors are emerging from their rooms. The air, which was thick in your chamber, is even more so out here. It's a truly potent brew of unwashed humanity, cheap perfume made from boiled flower petals, stale cooking smells from the kitchen below, and the ever-present damp chill, like a cellar. You join the slow-moving river of women heading for the stairs. The wood groans and creaks under the collective weight. The staircase is deep and narrow with no handrail to speak of. You place your hands on the rough, grimy plaster walls to steady yourself, a habit born from seeing more than one woman take a tumble in her haste or her drunkenness. As you descend, the sounds grow louder. The low murmur of conversation from downstairs, the clatter of a pot, a sudden, sharp plough. You reach the bottom of the stairs and step into the main room of the brothel. This is the heart of the establishment. This is where you'll spend most of your day. It's a large, low-silencing space, dark and smoky. A fire struggles to burn in a wide hearth at one end, putting out more smoke than heat. It stings your eyes, and you give a little cough, a sound that is immediately lost in the general din. The room is filled with rough-hewn wooden tables and benches, all of them scarred with knife marks and dark stains. The floor is covered with a layer of dirty rushes meant to soak up spills and whatever else might end up on the floor. In theory, they're changed regularly. In practice, they hide generations of grime and release a musty, slightly sweet, and altogether unpleasant smell when you walk on them. You know for a fact there's a good reason people in wealthy houses own small dogs, and it's not just for companionship, it's to chase the vermin that live in these floor coverings. Here, the vermin are just part of the atmosphere. This place is known as a stew. A quaint, harmless-sounding name, isn't it? Historians will later tie the name to the public bathhouses or stews, where this sort of business often began. For you, the name is grimly appropriate. Everything feels like it's stewing. The people, the smells, the very air itself. You are an ingredient in a slow simmering pot of desperation and commerce. You see Agnes, the woman who left your room earlier, already at a table, talking to a man who looks like a boatman from the nearby river. His hands are calloused and dirty, and she is laughing loudly at something she said, his mouth a collection of brown and missing teeth. Your morning mouth scrubbing routine suddenly feels a little less absurd. It's all about relative advantage. The clientele has already started to arrive, even at this early hour. They are a mix of apprentices spending their pocket money, traveling soldiers, and local craftsmen. They are loud, and their laughter is often a little too forced, a little too sharp. They drink weak, cloudy ale from leather jacks or cheap pottery mugs. The brothel makes a good portion of its money from selling overpriced drinks, a fact that is never lost on the keeper. You scan the room, your eyes adjusting to the gloom. This is your workplace. It's a stage, and you are one of the players. Your job now is to find a spot, look available but not too eager, and try to catch someone's eye. It's a delicate, weary dance you know all too well. You need to project an image of cheerful welcome, an oasis of manufactured warmth in this cold, grimy world. It is an exhausting performance. There's a curious detail that many chroniclers of your time will miss. They'll write about the sin and the squalor, but they'll miss the sheer, mind-numbing boredom of it all. The long stretches of time spent sitting on a hard bench, trying to look pleasant, waiting for someone to choose you. The endless repetitive conversations. The feigned laughter at jokes that weren't funny the first time you heard them. It's a job, and like many jobs, it's mostly just waiting. You squat an empty space on a bench near the back, away from the worst of the smoke from the fire. As you make your way there, you sidestep a puddle of spilled ale. The rushes squelch unpleasantly under your worn shoe. Use it, pulling your striped curtain neatly around you. From here you have a good view of the door. Every time it opens, it lets in a slice of the grey morning and another potential customer. Or, potentially trouble. The stew is a world unto itself, but it's a world with a fragile peace. Fights are common, fueled by ailing bruised egos. You've learned to recognize the signs, the subtle shift in a man's posture, the sharpening of his tone, that signals it's time to make yourself scarce. For now, all is calm. A grim, noisy, smelly sort of calm. The day is young. You fold your hands in your lap and arrange your face into a neutral, pleasant expression. The smile is ready. The uniform is on. You are at your post. Welcome to the stews. As you settle onto the hard bench, your eyes inevitably drift towards the figure standing near the smoky hearth. She is not dressed in stripes or garish colors. She wears a plain, dark kirtle of good quality wool, and a set of iron keys hangs from a leather belt at her waist. They jingle softly when she moves, a sound that cuts through the general clamor of the room like a tiny, sharp bell. This is the brothel keeper, or as you think of her, the true master of this stew. Her name is Matilda. She is a widow in her 40s with a face that looks like it was carved from a block of wooden then left out in the rain. Her expression is a permanent, weary vigilance. Her eyes miss nothing. She sees the level of ale in every man's cup, the furtive exchange of coins, the subtle flicker of a dispute between two women. She is the law in this building, a power more immediate and tangible than that of the city alderman, or even the king. You owe her everything, which means you are utterly trapped by her. She paid for your license to work in the district. She pays for your food, the miserable, starchy stuff, but food nonetheless. She provides the roof over your head and the straw in your mattress. And for this, you owe her a debt that seems to grow no matter how many coins you earn. The rules of the house are her rules. They are numerous and strictly enforced. You are not allowed possessions beyond a second chemise and a few small trifles. Any gifts from clients must be turned over to her. You are not to leave the brothel without her permission. You are certainly not to solicit men on the street. All business must happen within these walls where she can take her cut. The fine for breaking these rules is a beating, but withholding of food, or being locked in your room, or, most commonly, an addition to your ever-increasing debt. It's a beautifully simple system of control, and it is brutally effective. Historians will later discover documents, city ordinances from places like London or Southwark, that lay out the official regulations for these establishments. They'll read about rules designed to protect the women. No one can be forced to work against her will. The women can't be lent out. They must have food and board. It all looks surprisingly progressive on paper. But you are living the reality. And the reality is Matilda. The official rules are distant thunder. Her rules are the lightning strike right outside the door. She is the sole interpreter of the law here. You watch as she moves from the hearth to intercept a newcomer, a young weaver's apprentice with fluff still on his tunic. She greets him with a smile that doesn't reach her eyes, gestures to the room, and sells him a mug of ale at a price that would make a tavern owner blush. She is both hostess and warden, a truly bizarre combination. There's a strange, debated aspect of these figures: the keepers, the madams, the boardess. Were they purely exploitative predators, profiting from the misery of others, or were they something more complex, some worth-former prostitutes themselves? Women who had managed, through luck or ruthlessness, to claw their way into a position of relative power in a world that offered them none. They were business women in a time and place that had little room for female entrepreneurs. Matilda, it is whispered, was once one of you. You look at her hard face and wonder if that makes her more or less sympathetic. The consensus among the women is less. She knows all the tricks, all the ways to hide a coin or skive off for a moment, which means you can never get away with anything. Your relationship with her is the central negotiation of your life. You must remain in her good graces to survive. This means being profitable, avoiding trouble, and never, ever questioning the accounts. Every night she will tally your earnings, and she will tally your earnings, and she will take her share. Her share is everything, minus the tiny amount she deems sufficient for you to live on. That's how the debt works. It's a masterpiece of informal economics, ensuring a steady, compliant workforce. You see her gaze sweep the room, and for a second it lands on you. You straighten your back slightly, making sure you look attentive, ready for business. A small, almost imperceptible nod from her is all the acknowledgement you get. It means get to work. Your stomach gives a slight, nervous flutter, Her disapproval is a cold weight, a threat more potent than any rowdy customer. She holds the keys to the front door, the keys to the larder, the keys to the mudder, the keys to the box where the money is kept. She is the keeper of the keys to your life, and she never lets you forget it. You turn your attention back to the room, your manufactured smile feeling a little more brittle, a little more fragile. A man detaches himself from the crowd near the door and begins to make his way through the smoky room. He's a soldier, you can tell by his bearing and the worn leather jerkin that's seen better days. He's not young, but not old either. His face is weathered, and he walks with the weary confidence of a man who is paid to be violent. He scans the room, his eyes passing over the other women before they land on you. This is it. The moment of transaction begins. Your heart gives a little thump, a mixture of apprehension and professional necessity. You adjust your posture, making sure your striped coat lays arranged just so. You call up that smile you've been practicing, the one you hope looks welcoming and not as tired as you feel. He stops in front of your bench. He smells of damp wool, sweat, and the road. "Good morning," he says, his voice a low rumble. "A very good morning to you, sir," you reply, your voice a little higher, a little sweeter than its natural register. It's your work voice. He looks you up and down, a slow, appraising glance that makes you feel like a horse at a market. You're used to it, but it never feels pleasant. Then his eyes meet yours and he smiles. His teeth are in surprisingly good condition. It's a small, absurd thing to notice, but in your world, it's a rarity. And it's a stark reminder of your own morning ritual, of the gritty, salty paste and the ever-present fear of decay. Your smile feels a little more like a mask now, hiding the reality of your own mouth. He sits down beside you on the bench, a little too close. You don't flinch. That's part of the job. He wants to talk for a bit, which is common. He asks your name. You give him one, not your real name, of course. No one uses their real name here. You are Janet for today. Yesterday you were Alice. It's easier that way. It keeps a small, essential part of you separate from the word. As he speaks, telling you some rambling story about his journey to the city, you become acutely aware of your own breath. Did the salt and sage work well enough? Is there any lingering soreness from the morning? It's a constant, nagging anxiety. You subtly reach for the small leather pouch you keep tied to your belt, hidden in the folds of your kirtler. Your fingers close around the secret weapon. It's a small sprig of parsley. Before you left your room this morning, you took it from a little bunch you keep in a cup of water by the window, trying to keep it fresh for as long as possible. Parsley is a small miracle. It's cheap, it's relatively easy to get from the market women, and it's remarkably effective at masking other, less pleasant odors. Some of the other women prefer cloves, which are more potent but also more expensive. They numb the mouth, which can be useful if you have a tooth that's starting to ache. Others chew on dill seeds or mint leaves. It's a whole secret pharmacopoeia of breath fresheners, a body of knowledge passed from woman to woman in whispered conversations. Historians will write volumes about medieval herbalism, focusing on remedies for fevers, wounds, and serious diseases. They'll often overlook the mundane, everyday use of herbs for something as simple and as critical as social survival. This isn't about healing. It's about commerce. It's oral hygiene as a business expense. While the soldier is looking away, distracted by a shout from across the room, you perform the practiced maneuver. You bring your hand to your mouth as if stifling a tiny, delicate cough, and in that brief moment, you slip the sprig of parsley inside. You tuck it between your gum and your cheek, a small, green burst of fresh, peppery flavor. It's almost startlingly clean against the lingering saltness from your morning scrub. Now you can relax just a little. The parsley will work its quiet magic, releasing its scent and giving you the confidence to lean in a little closer when you speak, to laugh without worrying what you are exhaling. It's a tiny piece of stagecraft, an invisible prop in the play you are performing. The soldier turns back to you. "What are you smiling at, Janet?" he asks. "Just enjoying your story, sir," you say, and this time, the smile feels a fraction more genuine. You have your armor on. Not the soldier's leather, but your own fragile herbal shield. You are ready for the conversation, for the negotiation, for whatever comes next. The parsley is a small green lie, a fragrant mask for the decay that poverty and poor diet have planted in your mouth. For now it is enough. The performance can continue. The soldier, whose name you learn is Thomas, continues his story. It's a meandering tale about a skirmish on the Welsh border, full of bravado and casual violence. You've heard variations of this story 100 times. The details change. It might be a bar fight, a dispute with a guild master, or a long sea voyage, but the rhythm is always the same. It's the story of a man's importance, and your role is to be his rapt audience. So you listen. You nod in the right places. You widen your eyes when he describes a particularly daring and likely exaggerated feat. You make small sounds of sympathy or admiration. Oh my, you say, how dreadful. And you were very brave, I'm sure. This is a huge part of the work, and it's something that is so often misunderstood. Men don't just come here for the physical act. They come for this, for a woman to sit with them, to listen to them, to make them feel interesting and powerful for a few minutes in a world that likely makes them feel anything but. They come for a conversation that doesn't judge, doesn't argue, and doesn't have any demands of its own. Your mind, however, is only half on his story. The other half is engaged in a constant, running calculation. You're assessing him. Is he a quick, no-nonsense type, or a lonely man who will want to talk for an hour? Does he seem generous or stingy? Is he sober enough to be reasonable? Or drunk enough to be trouble? Every word he says, every gesture he makes is a clue. This assessment is crucial for determining the price. There is no menu of services here. There's no fixed rate. The price is a negotiation, a delicate and often unspoken dance. It depends on the man, the time of day, how busy the house is, and frankly how much you think you can get. This is a skilled trade in its own way. And so the captain says to me, Thomas is droning on, he says, Thomas, you've saved the whole company. How wonderful for you, you murmur, leaning in just a little. The fresh, green scent of the parsley tucked in your cheek gives you confidence. He smiles, pleased with your attention. The moment is right. It's thirsty work telling such tales, you say, your voice soft and suggestive. A man as brave as you deserves a proper drink. A bit of wine, perhaps. This is the opening move. The WKLHES drinking is cheap. The wine, kept in a small barrel in the back for special customers, is not. If he agrees to wine, it's a sign that HES willing to spend. He hesitates for a second, a flicker of calculation in his own eyes. HES probably weighing the cost against the pleasure of impressing you. Aye, he says finally, puffing out his chest a little. Wine it is, and for you too. You're too kind, sir, you say. You catch Matilda's eye across the room and give a subtle jerk of your head towards the back. She understands immediately. This is business. She disappears for a moment and returns with 2 pottery cups and a small jug of watered-down red wine. The cost of this wine will be added to Thomas's bill, and a healthy portion of that cost will go directly into Matilda's pocket. This is the core of the business model. It's not just about the final transaction. It's about all the little transactions along the way. The overpriced drinks, the illusion of luxury in a place that has none. Historians will argue for ages about the agency of women in your position. Did you have any control, any power? The answer is yes. But it's a tiny, flickering flame in a vast, cold darkness. Your power lies here in this conversation. It's in your ability to read a man, to play a part, and to gently, skillfully, upsell him from ale to wine. It's the power of a good saleswoman. He pours the wine, his hand clumsy. A little slushes onto the table. He seems pleased with himself, playing the role of the generous host. You take a small sip. It's thin and sour, but you smile as if it's the finest vintage from France. Delicious, you lie. The conversation continues, but the tone has shifted. The wine has moved it from a casual chat to a prelude. HES paid for a higher level of service now, and the expectation is clear. You continue to listen, to smile, to perform the part of the enchanted admirer. But in the back of your mind, the gears are turning. The price of your time is going up with every sip of that sour wine. You are not just selling your body, you are selling a carefully constructed experience, an illusion, and the price of that illusion is set right here in the quiet, careful management of a soldier's ego. After what feels like an eternity of nodding and smiling, Your time with Thomas concludes. He leaves a few copper coins on the table, fewer than you'd hoped for after the grand gesture of buying wine, but more than nothing. You watch him walk out the door, another transient figure disappearing back into the city's great tapestry. You don't have time to dwell on it. The main room is still half full, and the day is far from over. But first, a brief respite. A rumble in your stomach reminds you that the gritty tooth powder and sprig of parsley are the only things you've put in your mouth all day. Matilda, ever the shrewd businesswoman, knows that hungry workers are unproductive workers. At midday, she provides the one guaranteed meal of the day. You see Catherine and Eleanor heading toward a small alcove near the back of the stew, and you follow them. This is the designated eating area, just a long bench pushed against a wall. There, another of Matilda's employees, a sour-faced woman who runs the kitchen, is ladling out the daily fare. There is no choice. There is only the pot. Today, as on most days, the meal is pottage. It's a thick, brownish stew, the staple food of the common folk. Its contents are a mystery that's probably best not to solve. It's mostly barley and whatever vegetables were cheapest of the market yesterday, a few bits of leathery carrot, some wilted greens, maybe a turnip. There's no meat, of course. Meat is a luxury for feast days and rich men. The pottage is bland, has a slightly burnt taste from sitting on the fire for too long. Alongside the bowl of pottage, you're given a hunk of bread. It's a dark, heavy rye bread, dense and chewy. It's the kind of bread that requires serious effort from your jaw. And to wash it all down, you get a small mug of ale. Not the watered-down stuff sold to customers, but an even weaker, cheaper version known as small beer. It's thin and sour, but it's wet and safer to drink than the river water. You take your bowl and your bread and find a space on the bench. The other women are eating quickly, silently, with the grim efficiency of people for whom food is fuel, not pleasure. The conversation from the main room feels a world away. Here, in the eating alcove, the performance stops. Faces are slack with weariness. The smiles are gone. You dip the hard crust of your bread into the pottage, netting it often a little before you try to chew it. As you eat, you can't help but think about your teeth. This diet is a disaster for them. The bread is starchy. The ale is, you guessed it, derived from starch. It's a constant bath of sugars and carbohydrates. The perfect recipe for plaque and decay. You can almost feel a sticky film forming on your teeth even as you chew. This is a point that many romanticized depictions of the past completely miss. They might show a great banquet with roasted swans, but they ignore the daily reality of a diet like this. A diet that was not only nutritionally pure but also actively destructive to the one part of your body you relied on for your professional smile. The link between the sweet, sticky foods of the wealthy and their famously bad teeth is well known. But scholars sometimes overlook the fact that a relentlessly starchy diet, even without access to sugar, is just as bad in the long run. It's a slower, grittier path to the same destination, a mouthful of rot. You chew a mouthful of the dense bread, and a familiar, faint twinge registers in one of your back molars. It's not pain, not yet. It's just a dull, deep-seated sensitivity. A little warning sign. You instinctively switch to chewing on the other side of your mouth. You've been getting these little signals for a few weeks now. You try to ignore them. There's nothing to be done about it anyway. You look at the other women. Catherine, beside you, is missing one of her front teeth. She has a habit of holding her hand over her mouth when she smiles. Eleanor has a pronounced swelling along her jawline that she insists is just a bee sting, but everyone knows what it is. It's a landscape of dental catastrophe, hidden behind forced smiles and sprigs of parsley. You finish your meal using the last piece of bread to wipe your bowl clean. You're no longer hungry, but you don't feel nourished. You just feel full of the same heavy, cheap food that will require another vigorous, painful scrubbing session with the salt and sage tomorrow morning. It's a vicious cycle. The food that keeps you alive is also slowly, inexorably, destroying the key to love your trade. You hand your empty bowl back to the kitchen woman and take one last swallow of the sour ale. The brief break is over. Time to go back to the main room, back to the performance. You run your tongue over your teeth. They feel coated and unclean. You wish you had another sprig of parsley, but you have to make the one you have last for the rest of the day. You take a deep breath, push the thought of the ache in your tooth to the back of your mind, and walk back out into the smoky gloom. As the afternoon wears on, you manage to attract the attention of a couple more clients. A young stonemason's apprentice who spent his money quickly and nervously, and an older wool merchant who smelled of lanolin and sadness, and mostly just wanted to complain about his wife. For each, the ritual was the same: the careful conversation, the feigned interest, the negotiation, the transaction, and afterward a few more small, warm copper coins in your pouch. The light filtering through the grimy window opening has begun to fade, turning from a flat grey to a deeper bruised purple. This is the time of day when Matilda begins to make her rounds. It's time for the accounting. She approaches your bench, the iron keys at her waist heralding her arrival. She doesn't sit, she looms. Well, she asks, her voice flat. It's not a question so much as a demand. With a feeling of dread, you untie the small leather pouch from your belt. This is the moment of truth. The pouch feels heavier than it did this morning, but you know it's not nearly heavy enough. You pour the contents into your hand, a small collection of copper pennies and a few even smaller half pennies. It's a meager pile. It represents hours of work, of forced smiles, of listening to tedious stories, of swallowing your own weariness. Matilda looks at the coins in your palm, her eyes sharpened, assessing. She doesn't need to count them. She seems to know the value just by looking at the size and color of the pile. She holds out her hand, and you have no choice but to tip the coins into her waiting palm. It's a physical transfer of your entire day's labor. The feeling of the metal leaving your skin makes your stomach clench. She closes her hand around the coins. This is it, she says, her tone laced with disappointment. It was a slow afternoon, Matilda, you say, your voice barely a whisper. It's the same excuse you all use. Sometimes it's even true. She makes a TSK sound, a noise of pure contempt. Slow for you, perhaps. She then begins the ritual of the accounting, speaking as much to herself as to you. From this we take for your board. And for your lodging. She mentally subtracts a sum. And for the wine for that soldier. You know I pay a premium for that vintage. A blatant lie, but one you can't challenge. And a contribution for the firewood. And for the rushes on the floor. Each item is a stone she is methodically adding to the weight of your debt. Finally she opens her hand again. She separates one single, small copper coin from the pile. She picks it up between her thumb and forefinger and drops it back into your palm. For your troubles, she says without a trace of irony. 1 coin. That's what you were left with after a full day's work. It's not enough to buy anything of substance. It might buy you an extra sprig of parsley at the market, or a small handful of nuts if the seller is feeling generous. It is, in essence, an allowance, not a wage. It's a token to maintain the fiction that you are earning something, that you are a free agent. This is the system of debt peonage that keeps the stews running. You are perpetually in meticulous debt for your food, your shelter, your very license to exist in this space. Every penny you earn is already hers before it even touches your hand. The final sum is always calculated to be just a little more than you could possibly make. It ensures you can never save enough to leave. It's a cage with invisible bars, more effective than any lock and key. Historians will puzzle over the economics of this. They'll find court records of prostitutes suing their keepers for withholding earnings, and they'll see some women winning those cases. This suggests a system where, on paper, you had rights, but the reality on the ground, in this smoky, oppressive room, is that the keeper holds all the power. Taking Matilda to court is an impossible fantasy. It would require a knowledge of the law, the money to bring a case, and the courage to stand against the woman who controls every aspect of your life. It's not going to happen. You close your hand around the single warm coin. It feels small and insulting. This is the tangible result of your day. You have traded your time, your energy, your health, and your performance for this. For a single, solitary piece of copper. I expect a better take tomorrow, Matilda says, before turning unmoving on to the next woman. You watch her go, the rest of your earnings disappearing into the large leather pouch she keeps hidden in her own curva. You slide the coin into your own pouch. It feels depressingly light. You look around the room. The evening crowd is starting to drift in, louder and drunker than the daytime clientele. The work isn't over yet. You still have hours to go. You have to try and earn more, to try and chip away at a debt that is designed to be unpayable. The pressure is immense. And the dull throb in your back tooth, which had faded during the business of the day, chooses this moment to return, a quiet, insistent reminder of another debt, a physical one, that is also coming due. The evening descends into a loud, chaotic blur. The stew is packed now, shoulder to shoulder with men letting off steam after their own long day's work. The air is so thick with smoke, sweat, and spilled ale that it feels like you could cut it with a knife. The noise is a constant roar, punctuated by shouts and sudden bursts of laughter. It's the most lucrative time of day, but also the most dangerous. You find yourself sharing a bench with Catherine and Eleanor, huddled together for a moment of respite between clients. Agnes is somewhere in the throng, her high-pitched laugh cutting through the noise every now and then. This is one of the rare moments you have for unguarded conversation, a brief window to exchange news and warnings in hushed tones, your heads close together as if sharing a great secret. The Cooper from Bridge Street is here again. Catherine whispers, her hand subtly covering the gap in her teeth as she speaks. He's in a foul mood. His wife locked him out. Best to avoid him. Then, Eleanor murmurs, rubbing her swollen jaw. HES a weeper when HES drunk, and a cheap one at that. This is the currency of your community information. Who is generous, who is rough, who has a strange request, who is likely to cause trouble. It's a constantly updated, oral database of the local male population. This knowledge is your most valuable tool for navigating the treacherous waters of the evening. It's a form of solidarity, a small act of watching out for one another in a world that offers you no other protection. But this solidarity is a fragile thing. The conversation quickly shifts. Did you see the ribbon Agnes was wearing? Catherine says, her voice taking on a sharper edge. A blue silk one. A client gave it to her, she said. She didn't give it to Matilda, you ask, surprised. That's a bold and foolish breach of the rules. Of course not, Eleanor scoffs. She's got it hidden, thinks Matilda won't notice. She's getting reckless. Ever since that young scholar started asking for her, she thinks she's the queen of the stews. And there it is, the flip side of the coin. The communal support is real, but so is the rivalry. You are all in competition with each other. For the best clients, for the easiest work, for the slightest advantage that might make this life a fraction more bearable. A new ribbon, a favored client, a slightly better take at the end of the day. These are the things that can breed resentment and jealousy. The social dynamics of a medieval brothel are something scholars can only guess at, piecing together clues from court records about fights and thefts. They might theorize about a sisterhood of the oppressed, a bond forged in shared hardship. And that exists in moments, but they might underestimate the intense, grinding pressure of the system you're in. Meticulous method of control thrives on this division. She fosters it, subtly praising one woman's earnings while shaming another's. It keeps you from ever truly uniting against her. You stay silent during this exchange, not wanting to take a side. You know Agnes' small act of defiance with the ribbon is probably doomed to fail, and the punishment will be swift. You also know that Catherine S. and Eleanor S. gossip is fueled by a mix of genuine concern and pure envy. It's a messy, complicated web of relationships, and you have to tread carefully. Shall learn, you say finally, a neutral statement that could mean anything. The conversation is cut short as a man, a burly dyer with hands stained permanently blue, lurches towards your bench. He points a wavering finger at Eleanor. You, he slurs. I'll have you. Eleanor pastes on her work smile, a grimace of professionalism. She gives you and Catherine a quick, meaningful look, a mix of wish me luck and here we go again, and gets up to lead the dyer away. You and Catherine are left on the bench. The brief moment of community is over. The noise of the room rushes back in to fill the space. You feel a sudden, sharp pang of loneliness. You are surrounded by people, yet you feel completely isolated. You are part of a group of women living the exact same life, yet the nature of that life pits you against each other in a quiet, daily struggle. You glance over at a bar where two merchants are laughing with a woman you don't know well, a newcomer named Isabel. She's young, barely 16, and still has a freshness about her that hasn't yet been worn away by the grime and the weariness. The merchants are clearly charmed. You feel a familiar bitter pang. Every year new Isabellas arrive, and every year the rest of you have to work a little harder to compete. You smooth down your striped curtain and force yourself to scan the room again, to re-engage with the task at hand. The whispers in the wash-house, the gossip on the bench, it's all just part of the background noise of this life. The only thing that really matters is securing the next client, earning the next coin, and surviving until the morning. Just as you're scanning the room for your next potential client, the sound from outside cuts through the din. It's the deep, resonant tolling of a church bell calling the faithful to evening prayers. For most of the men in the stew, the sound is meaningless, a part of the city's auditory landscape they've long since tuned out. For you, it's a profound and jarring reminder of the other world that exists, just a few streets away. A world that both condemns you and, in a way you're keenly aware of, profits from you. You glance towards the door as if you could see the church tower from here. You can't, of course, but you can feel its presence. It's a shadow that stretches over the entire city, and its shade is particularly long and dark over this district. The priests and bishops preach against you from their pulpits, calling you a vessel of sin, a moral plague, a necessary evil to protect the virtue of decent women. You are the sewer that drains away the city's lust, keeping the main streets clean. It's a disgusting metaphor, but one you've heard whispered often enough to know it's what they think. And yet, here is the great, glaring hypocrisy that is the central joke of your existence. The very land on which this brothel stands is owned by the church. This is a historical fact that will leave future generations scratching their heads. In many cities, the local bishopric or a powerful abbey was the primary landlord of the licensed brothel districts. They owned the properties, collected the rents, and grew wealthy from the very trade they so publicly denounced. Matilda doesn't pay her rent to some anonymous lord, she pays it to a reeve who works for the bishop. The money you earn, the money Matilda takes from you, a portion of it flows steadily and reliably into the coffers of the very institution that calls your soul damn. It's a perfect closed loop of profit and piety, and did that they were merely acting as landlords. They weren't responsible for the activities that took place on their property. It was a neat bit of moral accounting that allowed them to hold their noses while pocketing the coins. Some even framed it as a form of control, arguing that by owning the land, they could better regulate the trade and prevent it from spilling into respectable neighborhoods. You don't know the theological justifications, you just know the practical reality. You are working to line the pockets of men who would spit at the sight of you on the street. It's an irony so profound it's almost funny, if it weren't so soul-crushingly grim. You think about the concept of sin. You hear it talked about all the time. Your work, your life, your very existence in this too is sinful. But as you look around the room, at the men drinking and grabbing, at Matilda counting her coins, you wonder about the nature of it. Who is the greater sinner, you, who are doing what you must to survive, or the man in fine robes who condemns you on Sunday and cashes your rent check on Monday? It's a question you never dare ask out loud. This tension between religious condemnation and finding feature of your world. The brothel has to close on holy days. That's the law, a small performative nod to guidelines. But for the rest of the week, it's business as usual. You are allowed to exist, to operate, in this carefully cordoned off space, because you are both a social necessity and a financial asset. A necessary evil is still necessary, and more importantly, it's profitable. The debate over the church's role in this trade is a hot one for historians. Was it cynical greed, plain and simple, or was it a more complex, pragmatic attempt to contain and manage a social problem they knew they could never eradicate? Was it hypocrisy, or was it a form of reluctant, tacit regulation? The documents show the financial transactions, the rent rolls, the deeds of ownership, but they don't show the intent. They don't capture the feeling in this room as the church bell tolls, a sound of judgment that is paid for in part by you. The bell falls silent. The noise of the stew rushes back in to fill the vacuum, A man at the next table drunkenly starts singing a bawdy song. The moment of reflection is over. You are not in a church. You are in a church. And your soul is not the currency that matters here. You push the thoughts of bishops and their long shadows away. It's all too big, too baffling. All you can do is focus on the small, grubby world in front of you. The world of striped kirtles and sour ale and the desperate, pressing need to earn another coin. The evening grinds on. You've had another client, a quiet tailor who seemed more lonely than lustful. The interaction left you feeling more drained than usual. The noise, the smoke, and the constant pressure are starting to weigh you down. Your smile feels like a lead weight on your face, and the parsley in your cheek has long since lost its freshness, leaving behind a bitter, wilted taste. You see a small window of opportunity. Matilda is occupied in the back, arguing with the kitchen woman about the cost of firewood. The main room is a chaotic whirl of activity, and no one is paying you any specific attention. This is your chance. With a practiced subtlety, you slip off the bench and make your way toward the back of the building. You move not towards the kitchen, but towards a low, narrow door that is often overlooked. You push it open. It leads to a small, enclosed yard, not much bigger than your sleeping room. This is where the washing is hung to dry on the rare sunny days, and where the empty ale barrels are stored. It's a space of pure function, and because of that, it's usually empty. You slip outside and pull the door quietly shut behind you, and for the first time all day, you are alone. The change in atmosphere is immediate and profound. The roar of the stew is instantly muffled, replaced by the quiet hum of the city at night. The air here is cold and clean, a shocking and welcome relief after the thick, smoky atmosphere inside. You take a deep, greedy breath, letting the chill fill your lungs. It feels like drinking a glass of cold water after a long, parching thirst. The yard is walled in on all sides by the dark, looming shapes of the surrounding buildings. But above the jagged line of the rooftops, there is a small patch of sky. It's a deep, inky black, and tonight, it's clear enough to see a few stars, faint and impossibly distant. You tip your head back and just look at them for a moment. They are silent, indifferent, and beautiful. This is your sanctuary. A stolen moment of peace in a life that affords you almost none. It's a tiny rebellion. You are supposed to be inside, working. Every moment you spend out here is a moment. You are not available to a client, a tiny fraction of a penny lost from Matilda's pocket. But it's a price you're willing to pay for this. For solitude. You walk to the center of the small yard and sit down on an overturned barrel. The wood is cold and damp, but you don't care. You can feel the tension in your shoulders and neck begin to unclench just a little. You spit out the sad, wilted sprig of parsley. It feels good to have it gone. You run your tongue over your teeth, feeling the familiar landscape of your own mouth without the need to hide it behind a fragrant lie. It's in these quiet moments that the facade you maintain all day can finally crumble. The forced smile, the cheerful voice, the feigned interest, you can let them all drop to the ground. Out here, you are not Jennifer Ellis. You are just you, a tired woman in a striped dress, sitting in a cold yard, looking at the stars. The existence of these small pockets of private time is something that history can never truly record. The official documents, the court records, the chronicles, they all focus on the public aspects of your life. The work, the regulations, the conflicts. They can't capture these fleeting, internal moments of escape. Did other women have their own secret places, their own ways of carving out a few minutes of peace? It's a question that historians can debate, but they'll never know for sure. It's a history of the mind, a history of emotion, and it leaves no artifacts behind, except perhaps in the lines etched on a face. You close your eyes and just listen. You can hear the distant shout of a boatman on the river, the bark of a dog, the faint, ghostly echo of the brothel's noise through the thick wooden door. These are the real sounds of your world, stripped of the need to perform. This brief escape is a survival mechanism. It's how you keep from shattering into a million pieces. It's a reminder that there is a you that exists separately from your function. But it's a fragile piece, and it can't last. You know that in a minute or two, you'll have to go back inside. You'll have to put the mask back on, find a new piece of parsley if you can, and re-enter the stew. But for now you just sit. You let the cold air numb your face. You watch the tiny, distant stars. And you allow yourself to feel the full, crushing weight of your own exhaustion, without any need to hide it. It's a painful luxury, this moment of quiet honesty, and it's the only one you're going to get. As you sit there on the cold barrel, wrapped in the precious, stolen silence, something else begins to make itself known. It starts as a low hum, a deep, resonant vibration in your jaw. You felt it before, this faint and distant signal. But tonight, it's different. You press your fingers against the side of your face, just below your ear. You can feel a faint warmth there that was there this morning. And beneath the skin, a deep rhythmic throbbing. It's the molar you've been worried about, the one that's been sending you little twinges for weeks. The quiet of the yard has stripped away all the distractions, all the noise that has allowed you to ignore it. It's a dull ache. Not sharp, not yet. It's a heavy, persistent, foundational kind of pain, the kind that you can feel in your bones. It radiates from a single point in your lower left jaw, a slow, insistent pulse that seems to beat in time with your own heart. Thump, thump, the little drum of decay, beating out a rhythm of doom. You close your eyes and try to will it away. You focus on the cold air, the distant stars, anything but the growing misery in your mouth. But it's no use. The ache is a physical presence now. It's a guest that has arrived and has no intention of leaving. This is the great, unspoken terror of your life, and of the lives of almost everyone you know. It's not the fear of bandits or plagues, as dramatic as those are. It's the slow creeping, intimate fear of a toothache. In your world, a toothache isn't a minor inconvenience to be solved with a quick trip to a dentist. It's the beginning of a potentially life-altering ordeal. It's a gateway to agony, infection, and a confrontation with the brutal, terrifying reality of medieval medicine. You probe the tooth tentatively with the tip of your tongue. The edges feel rough, and there's a distinct hollow in the center, a little crater of decay that has been slowly, quietly expanding for months. The starchy food, the nightly grime, the relentless scouring with salt that has worn down the protective surfaces, it has all led to this. A breach in the wall. An invitation for the rot to set in. Medical historians will write about the plagues, the fevers, the dramatic battlefield wounds. But what about this, the low-grade, chronic, and utterly pervasive problem of dental decay? The sheer amount of human suffering caused by something as small as a single rotting tooth is almost impossible to quantify, and so it is often overlooked in the grand narratives of history. For you, it is not a footnote. It is the central, throbbing reality of this moment. You think of Eleanor and the permanent swelling on her jaw. That's what happens when the rot goes deep, when an abscess forms. You've seen people become gravely ill from it, developing fevers that leave them delirious and weak for days. You've even heard of it killing people, the infection spreading from the jaw into the rest of the body. It's a terrifying thought. A tiny, rotten spot in your mouth could be a death sentence. The ache intensifies for a moment, a slightly sharper throb that makes you wince. You know you can't stay out here forever. You have to go back inside. You have to work. The thought of it is nauseating. How can you smile and make charming conversation when this deep, dull drum of pain is beating in your head? How can you pretend that everything is fine when a part of your own body is actively, insistently falling apart? This pain is a liability. It's a threat to your livelihood. A grimace of pain is not a marketable expression. A swollen, tender jaw is not something a client wants to see. The ache is not just a physical sensation. It's an economic crisis in the making. You stand up from the barrel, your body stiff with cold and a new, creeping dread. The stolen moment of peace has been poisoned. The silence you sought has only served to amplify the problem you were trying to escape. You take one last look at the stars, but they offer no comfort now. They just seem cold and far away. You push the door open and the wall of noise and smoke from the st hits you like a physical blow. The transition is jarring. You step back into the performance, but you are a different person than the one who left just a few minutes ago. You are now a woman with a secret that is throbbing in your jaw. A quiet but relentless countdown to a future you desperately want to avoid. The dull ache is your constant companion now, a shadow that has attached itself to your very being. You re-enter the main room, and the world slams back into focus. The chaos, the heat, The smell is overwhelming after the clean cold of the yard. You try to school your features back into that neutral, pleasant mask, but it feels 10 times harder now. The persistent dull ache in your jaw is a constant, humming distraction, a bass note of misery under the loud music of the stew. You spot an empty space on a bench and make your way toward it, trying to walk normally, trying not to favor the side of your face that's beginning to feel tender and swollen. You sit down. The simple act of arranging your coat feeling like a monumental effort. You are exhausted in a way that goes far beyond simple tiredness. It's the exhaustion of bearing a secret pain. Almost immediately, a man approaches. He's a merchant, you guess from his clothes, a fine wool tunic, not fancy, but well made. He's older, with a neatly trimmed grey beard and eyes that seem to hold a weary kindness. In any other circumstance, you would classify him as a good prospect, likely to be polite, willing to spend a little, and not looking for trouble. But right now, the thought of engaging in the performance is almost unbearable. He smiles at you. "Good evening," he says, his voice gentle. "May I join you?" "Of course, sir," you reply, the words feeling thick and clumsy in your mouth. You force the corners of your lips to turn up. The smile feels unnatural, a painful stretching of muscles that are already tense from the ache in your jaw. It's a grimace disguised as a welcome. He sits beside you, not too close, for which you are grateful. He introduces himself as Walter, a seller of dyes. He begins to talk about his day, the price of woad, a dispute with a supplier. It's the usual sort of talk, the gentle unloading of a day's burdens onto a willing ear. Your job is to listen, to nod, to seem engaged. But it's a battle. The dull throb in your molar is becoming a more insistent guest. It ends little echoes of pain up toward your ear and down into your neck. You try to focus on his words, but they seem to be coming from a great distance. Your entire consciousness is shrinking, collapsing down to that one single point of agony in your jaw. Suddenly a sharper, brighter pain lances through the dull ache. It's a hot, electric shock that makes you gasp and flinch, your eyes watering involuntarily. It's so sudden, so intense, that you can't suppress it. Your hand flies to your cheek, and the forced smile dissolves into a naked expression of pain. Walter stops talking mid-sentence. "Are you all right, mistress?" he asks, his kind eyes filled with genuine concern. The moment hangs in the air. This is a catastrophic failure of the performance. You have broken character. The mask has shattered. Your personal suffering has just burst onto the stage, raw and unscripted. For a client, this is not part of the fantasy they are paying for. They are here to escape their own troubles, not to be confronted with yours. It's nothing, you stammer, trying to recover. You lower your hand and force the smile back onto your face, but it's a trembling, unconvincing wreck. A sudden stitch in my side, that's all. It's a weak lie, and you both know it. The way you clutched your jaw was unmistakable. He looks at you, his expression a mixture of pity and discomfort. The illusion has been broken. You are no longer the cheerful, carefree companion. You are a woman in pain. This moment highlights a brutal reality of your profession that is rarely documented. Your own health, your own body, is your primary tool. But unlike a weaver's loom or a blacksmith's hammer, this tool can't be easily mended or replaced. And when it fails publicly. There is no sick leave for a woman in the stews. There is no retiring to your room to wait for the pain to pass. Your work requires a performance of health and happiness, and right now you are failing spectacularly. Walter clears his throat, clearly uncomfortable. The easy, relaxed atmosphere is gone. Perhaps another time," he says, his voice now distant. He stands up, fumbles in his purse, and places a single coin on the bench beside you, a token payment for your time, or perhaps just a gesture of pity. Then, without another word, he turns and walks away, disappearing into the crowd. You are left alone on the bench, the single coin a testament to your failure. You stare at it, your vision blurred by tears of pain and frustration. You failed. The pain made you fail. The ache in your tooth didn't just cause you physical misery, it cost you a client. It cost you money that you desperately need. You press your fingers to your cheek again, the jawbone underneath feeling hot and angry. The sharp pain has subsided back to the familiar dull throb, but you know it's still there waiting. A sleeping dragon. You have to hide it. You have to hide it. You have to force the grimace back into the shape of a smile, no matter how much it hurts. Your survival depends on it. But as you look out at the swirling chaos of the room, you feel a profound sense of despair. How long can you keep this up? How long before the pain wins? You sit there for a long time, trying to compose yourself. The coin from water feels like a hot coal in your pouch. It's a mark of failure. The pain in your jaw has settled back into its relentless, rhythmic throb, a constant reminder of the disaster. You feel a desperate need to just get up, go back to your cold room, and curl up in the dark. But you can't. Meticulous eyes are always watching, and leaving the floor during the busiest time of the evening is an offense that would not go unpunished. So you stay put, trying to make yourself small, hoping no one else will approach you for a while. You need time to rebuild the shattered mask. As you sit there, lost in your own bubble of misery, a commotion from the street outside draws your attention. The noise of the stew quiets down for a moment. Men turn from their drinks, their faces curious. Through the open doorway, you can see a flickering orange glow and hear a sound to the bawdy chaos of the brothel, the sound of chanting. It's a religious procession. A small one, not a major feast day parade, but a procession nonetheless. A priest in a dark robe walks at the front, holding a large wooden cross. Behind him, a few devout members of a local guild follow, their faces grim and pious in the torchlight. They are holding candles, their small flames flickering bravely against the night. They chant in Latin, a low, solemn drone that is both beautiful and deeply alien to the world inside the stew. They are marching past the edge of your district, carefully skirting the core of it, but pausing close enough for their presence to be felt. It's a mobile island of piety in a sea of sanctioned sin. The men in the brothel watch with a mixture of awe, resentment, and detached curiosity. For a moment, the two opposing poles of your city's moral universe are in direct, visible contact. You watch them through the doorway, a spectator to a faith that feels a million miles away. You see the marchers, their faces upturned in devotion, their eyes fixed on the cross. They are citizens of a different world, a world of saints and salvation, of grace and redemption, a world that has no place for you. You are a sinner. That is the label they would put on you. It's a simple, all-encompassing word that erases your story, your struggles, your humanity. To them, you are a temptation, a moral hazard, a soul lost to depravity. You wonder what they would think if they knew that the very brothel they are so carefully avoiding is helping to fund the wine they will drink at the next feast, through the rent paid to the church. The thought is so bitter it almost makes you laugh. This strange coexistence of the sacred and the profane is a hallmark of your time. Historians will call it a paradox, this ability of medieval society to compartmentalize so completely. They could build soaring cathedrals to the glory of God, while simultaneously running a highly organized, legally sanctioned sex trade, sometimes on church-owned land. They could venerate the purity of the Virgin Mary, while deeming women like you a necessary evil. It's a moral flexibility that is difficult to understand from a future perspective. For you, it's just the way things are. The world is divided into saints and sinners, the saved and the damned. And you know which side of that line you've been placed on. There is no bridge between your world and theirs. The procession passes. The chanting fades. The torchlight recedes, leaving the street outside dark once more. The spell is broken. The men in the stew turn back to their conversations and their ale. The noise level rises again, as if someone had just unstopped their ears. It's over, but the moment leaves an echo in the room. The brief intrusion of that other world has shifted the atmosphere. It's a reminder of judgment, of a moral order that exists outside meticulous rules. It's a reminder of your own status as an outcast. You touch your jaw. The pain is still there, a loyal and vicious companion. You think about the saints the marchers were praying to. There are saints for everything, for lost items, for safe travels. Is there a saint for rotting to the saint for women like you? Highly doubt it. In their world of clear-cut morality, there is no prayer for the necessary evil. You are on your own, in the smoky, godless universe of the stew, with only your wit, your fading smile, and the relentless, your fading smile, throbbing pain in your mouth. The encounter with the religious procession leaves you feeling raw and exposed. The throbbing in your jaw seems to have intensified, feeding on your despair. You know you can't just sit here and let the pain consume you. You need to do something, anything to fight back. You need a remedy, and you need it now. You push yourself up from the bench and navigate through the crowd, heading towards the small, cluttered room you share with the other women. You need to get to your medicine chest. Of course, it's not a chest at all. It's a small, loose floorboard under your straw pallet, where you keep the few personal items you've managed to hide from meticulous prying eyes. You reach your room. It's empty, thank God. Catherine and Eleanor are still working. You lift the corner of your pallet, the straw rustling loudly in the quiet. You pry up the loose board with your fingernails. In the small, dark space beneath, there are a few treasures, a small, smooth stone from a riverbed that reminds you of a time before this life, a slightly bent silver penny you've been saving for a true emergency, and a tiny linen pouch. You grab the pouch. It's tied with a piece of string. Your fingers tremble slightly as you fumble with the knot. Inside are 3 dried, dark brown objects. They are cloves. Cloves are a luxury. They come from impossibly far away, from spice islands you can't even imagine. They are expensive, worth more by weight than some metals. These 3 cloves are the result of a rare moment of generosity from a foreign sailor weeks ago. You've been saving them for a moment just like this. They are your most potent weapon against the misery in your mouth. You take one of the cloves. It's hard and shaped like a small dark nail. You bring it to your nose and inhale. The scent is powerful, a warm, spicy, and medicinal aroma that is both comforting and slightly numbing. It's the smell of hope. The folk wisdom passed down from woman to woman is clear. For a tooth that aches, you take a clove and press it against the sore spot. Its natural oils are said to numb the pain and draw out the evil humors that are causing the rot. You place the clove in your mouth, your tongue carefully maneuvering it back to the aching molar. You position it just right, pressing it into the hollow of the decayed tooth and holding it there with your cheek. The effect is almost immediate. A powerful, pungent taste floods your mouth. So strong it makes your eyes water. It's a taste that is both sweet and bitter, a complex, woody flavor that overwhelms everything else. And then comes the magic. A tingling, numbing sensation begins to spread through your gum. It's a strange feeling, like that part of your mouth is falling asleep. The sharp edges of the pain begin to soften, to recede. The relentless, throbbing drumbeat of the ache becomes muffled, as if you've stuffed cotton around the drum. It's not gone. You can still feel the deep foundational pressure of the ache. But the sharp, insistent quality of it has been blunted. The clove is working. A wave of profound relief washes over you, so intense it makes you feel weak. You sink down onto your pallet, your head spinning slightly from the potent flavor and the sudden easing of your torment. This is the reality of medicine for most people in your time. It's not about grand theories of anatomy or humors, though the physicians in the universities might debate such things. It's about this folk remedies, herbal wisdom, and desperate hope. It's about knowing that parsley freshens the breath, that willow bark can ease a fever, and that a precious, expensive clove can numb the agony of a dying tooth. The use of cloves for toothache is a piece of ancient wisdom, a practice that will endure for centuries. Long after the theories of humors have been dismissed, modern science will eventually identify the active compound, eugenol, a natural anesthetic and antiseptic. You don't know any of that. You just know that this tiny, dried flower bud is a gift, a small, temporary miracle. But as you lie there savoring the blessed numbness, a cold thought intrudes on your relief. This is a temporary fix. You know it. The clove loses its potency. The numbness will wear off, and the ache will return, perhaps even stronger than before. You only have 2 cloves left. What happens when they are gone? You are not solving the problem. You are just masking the symptom. You are pushing the inevitable reckoning a little further down the road. The decay is still there, in the dark, eating away at the core of your tooth. The clove is just a fragrant shield, and it's a fragile one. The question of the effectiveness of these folk remedies is a source of constant debate for historians. How much was placebo, how much was genuine, if limited, pharmacological effect for you? Sitting in the dark, the debate is irrelevant. It works for now, and for now that is enough. You close your eyes, the spicy, numbing taste of the clover welcome poison to the pain. You have bought yourself a few more hours of peace. A few more hours to work, to smile, to pretend that you are not slowly, inexorably falling apart. The relief from the clove is so profound that it gives you a renewed burst of energy. The numbing sensation in your jaw allows you to push the dread to the back of your mind. You can function again. You straighten your clothes, take a deep breath, and head back out into the main room of the stew, ready to rejoin the fray. You manage to navigate the next couple of hours with a renewed sense of professionalism. The clove, held firmly in place against the traitor's tooth, works its magic. You can laugh at a client's joke without a jolt of pain. You are back in the game. You even manage to secure another client, a young man who is celebrating the end of his apprenticeship and is feeling generous. The small pile of coins in your pouch grows a little larger. It's a small victory, but it feels monumental. As the night deepens, the atmosphere in the stew grows thicker, raw deer. The air is almost unbreathable with smoke and the smell of stale ale. Fights begin to break out at the edges of the room quick, clumsy scuffles fueled by drink and bruised pride. Matilda and her one hired man, a hulking figure named Piers, move through the crowd, expertly quelling these disturbances before they can escalate. Then comes a new sound from outside. Not the solemn bells of the church this time, but a sharp, authoritative rap on the wooden door. The room falls quiet for a second. It's not the knock of a customer. Piers pulls the door open, and two men step inside. They are members of the city watch. Their presence immediately changes the temperature of the room. The watchmen are a complicated presence in your district. They are here to enforce the law, the curfews, the regulations against street soliciting, the official closing times. But they are also men, and they are often customers themselves on their nights off. It's a relationship built on a tense and blurry line between authority and familiarity. Tonight, they are on duty. One of them, a man with a scarred face you recognize as Hugh, holds up a hand. It's the hour of curfew, he announces, his voice ringing with official power. The stews are to be cleared. All honest men to their homes. A collective groan goes through the room. The honest men, many of them far from it, begin to grumble and protest. But the law is the law. The brothels in the licensed district have a strict closing time. This is part of the city's attempt to keep the chaos contained, to prevent it from spilling over into the late hours of the night. Matilda, ever the pragmatist, steps forward. You heard the man, she calls out, her voice cutting through the grumbling. Drink up and get out. The house is closing. She knows better than to argue with the watch. A hefty fine or a forced closure for a night is not worth the few extra coins she might make in another hour. The men begin to shuffle out reluctantly, pulling on cloaks and muttering to each other. It's a slow, messy exodus. You and the other women simply stand back and wait. Your workday is officially over. The watchman, Hugh, lingers by the door, his eyes scanning the room. His gaze falls on you. He knows you, not by name but by sight. He gives you a look that is hard to read. It's not threatening exactly, but it's not friendly either. It's the look of a man who holds a small specific power over you. He could cause you trouble if he wanted to. He could accuse you of stealing from a client, but breaking one of the dozen petty regulations that govern your life. He holds that power, and you both know it. This is a facet of your life that is often lost in historical accounts. The formal laws are one thing, but the informal power of the men who enforce them is another entirely. The city watch, the constables, their personal whims and prejudices can have a huge impact on your daily survival. A friendly watchman might look the other way if a client stays a few minutes past curfew. A hostile one might make your life a misery. It's yet another delicate relationship you have to constantly navigate. Historians debate the effectiveness and corruption of medieval city guards. Were they a force for order, or were they just another gang, preying on the weak and taking bribes? The truth, as you experience it, is that they were both. They maintained a semblance of order, but that order was often arbitrary and self-serving. You meet Hugh's gaze and give him a slight, respectful nod. It's a gesture of acknowledgement. I see you. I respect your authority. Please don't give me any trouble. He holds your gaze for a moment longer, then gives a curt nod in return before turning and herding the last of the customers out the door. The interaction is over in a second, but it leaves you with a familiar, cold feeling in the pit of your stomach. The feeling of being powerless. Finally, the last man is gone. Piers bars the heavy door. The sudden, relative silence is deafening. The long, chaotic, painful day is finally over. All that's left is the final accounting with Matilda, and then the blessed release of sleep. You can still feel the faint, numbing tingle of the clove in your jaw. It got you through the night. It got you through the night. But as you stand there in the smoky, debris-strewn room, you wonder what tomorrow will bring. After the final, tense accounting with Matilda where you managed to surrender your slightly better earnings without drawing too much comment, you are finally dismissed. The day is done. You and the other women climb the creaking stairs back to your shared room, a slow, weary procession of ghosts. You collapse onto your straw pallet, not even bothering to remove your striped kirtler. The effort is simply too much. The room is dark, the only light a faint, silvery glow from the moon filtering through the old linen window. Eleanor is already snoring softly. Catherine is coughing, a dry, rasping sound in the darkness. The blessed numbness from the clove has begun to fade. It's a slow, creeping retreat. At first, you barely notice it, but then the familiar, deep throb in your jaw begins to reassert itself. It's like a tide coming back in, slowly reclaiming the territory it had lost. You lie perfectly still, hoping that if you don't move, if you don't even breathe too deeply, you can somehow keep it at bay. But it's a foolish hope. The ache grows steadily, moving from a dull throb to a sharper, more insistent pulse. It feels as though a tiny, malicious blacksmith has set up a forge inside your tooth and is now rhythmically hammering on a red-hot anvil. Sleep, which you crave more than anything, is an impossible dream. Every time you start to drift off, a particularly vicious throb of pain snatches you back to full, agonizing consciousness. You roll onto your other side, but the pressure on your face makes it worse. You roll onto your back, but the pain seems to radiate up into your skull, making your whole head feel like it's caught in a vice. Then, a new sensation begins. A creeping chill that has nothing to do with the cold air in the room. It starts in your limbs and works its way inward, a deep, internal cold that makes you shiver uncontrollably. You pull your thin wool blanket up to your chin, but it does nothing to stop the shaking. Your teeth, the healthy ones, begin to chatter, and yet your skin feels hot to the touch. You press a hand to your forehead, and it's clammy and burning. A fever. The infection in your tooth, which has been a localized problem until now, is starting to spill out into the rest of your body. The evil humors, as the physicians would call it, are on the move. This is the terrifying escalation you've been dreading. A simple toothache has now become a full-blown sickness. Your body is trying to fight the poison spreading from your jaw, and the battle is turning you into a shivering, burning wreck. Your straw pallet, which is usually just lumpy and uncomfortable, now feels like a bed of nails. Every stalk seems to poke and jab at your feverish skin. The familiar smells of the room, mildew, sweat, dust are suddenly overpowering, nauseating. The soft snores and coughs of the other women are like thunder in the hypersensitive landscape of your fevered mind. You are trapped in a nightmare of sensation. Time loses all meaning. You drift in and out of a shallow, feverish doze, filled with disjointed, anxious dreams. You dream of the watchman Hugh, his face looming over you. You dream of Matilda, her keys jingling like funeral bells. You dream of the procession of saints, their faces blank and judgmental. And through it all, the relentless, hammering pain in your jaw is the soundtrack, the one constant in a world that is dissolving into chaos. The study of historical diseases often focuses on folk epidemics, the Black Death, the sweating sickness. But the impact of these mundane, non-epidemic infections is a vastly underestimated part of daily life. The number of people who suffered and died from infected wounds, post-mortem infections, and yes, dental abscesses was immense. There were no antibiotics. The body's own immune system was the only real line of defense. and it was a battle that was often lost. At some point in the deep, dark hours of the night, a wave of heat so intense washes over you that you throw off your blanket, desperate for the cold air. You are burning from the inside out. Your mouth is dry, your tongue thick. You feel a desperate thirst, but the water bucket is an impossible distance away across a vast, treacherous ocean of floorboard. You lie there helpless, listening to the frantic pounding of your own heart. It is this how it ends, not in some grand, dramatic fashion, but here in the dark, on a lumpy straw bed, consumed by a fire that started with a tiny spot of decay in a single tooth. The fear is a cold, sharp counterpoint to the heat of the fever. The night stretches on, an eternity of pain chills, and fevered dreams. You have never felt so alone, so trapped inside your own suffering body. The world has been reduced to this: the throbbing jaw, the burning skin, the shivering bones. The future has shrunk to a single, desperate question: will you survive until morning? The grey, sickly light of dawn finally begins to seep through the oiled linen window, illuminating a scene of utter misery. You are still alive, but you feel like a wreck washed up on the shore after a terrible storm. The fever has broken, leaving you drenched in a cold, clammy sweat that has soaked through your chemise and into the straw pallet beneath you. You are weak, trembling, and utterly drained. But the pain is worse than ever. The dull throb has been replaced by a sharp, constant, undeniable agony. The entire left side of your face is a universe of torment. It hurts to swallow. The slightest movement of your head sends a blinding, white-hot poker of pain from your jaw into your temple. The swelling, which was subtle yesterday, is now a pronounced, tender lump on your jawline, hot to the touch. The abscess has fully formed. Catherine is the first to stir. She sits up, takes one look at you, and her usual expression of weary cynicism melts away. "God's teeth," she whispers, her eyes wide. "You look like death." It's the most honest and compassionate thing she's said in weeks. Eleanor wakes up soon after, and her reaction is the same. They see your swollen face, your pale and sweaty skin, your eyes glazed with pain, and they know. This isn't just a toothache anymore. This is a crisis. You try to speak, to tell them how bad it is, but even the movement of your tongue sends a fresh wave of agony through you. A small, pathetic whimper is all that comes out. There is no question of you working today. You can't even sit up, let alone put on a striped kirtler and a fake smile. You are a complete liability. Matilda will not be pleased, and that is the crux of the problem. Your immediate physical agony is intertwined with a cold, practical reality. You cannot turn money in this state. You are taking up a space that could be occupied by a healthy, productive woman. Matilda is not running a charity. She will see you not as a person in need of care, but as a broken tool. Eleanor, who has some experience with this, gives you a grim, pitying look. "You have to do something, girl," she says softly. "The clove and parsley won't help you now. There's only one thing for it." You all know what she means. There is only one cure for a tooth in this state. It isn't a cure at all. It's an amputation. The tooth has to come out. The thought sends a fresh wave of fear through you, a fear so cold and sharp it almost eclipses the pain. The idea is terrifying. But the alternative, you realize with a sinking heart, is worse. To lie here and let the infection continue to poison you, to let the pain drive you mad, that is not an option. You might be too sick to work today, but if you do nothing, you might be dead by the end of the week. It is a desperate decision born of pure agony and terror. You have to face the barber surgeon. This decision marks a critical turning point. Up until now, your dental problems have been a matter of management and concealment. The gritty paste, the parsley, the clove, they were all tools to maintain a facade, to keep the problem hidden and allow you to continue working. Now concealment is no longer possible. The problem has become so overwhelming that it demands a direct, brutal confrontation. Historians who study medicine often talk about the patient's choice. But what kind of choice is this? It's a choice between the certainty of a terrifying, painful procedure and the high probability of a slow, agonizing decline. It's a choice made at the absolute edge of desperation, when all other options have been exhausted. There is no good option here. There is only the lesser of two profound evils. You look at Catherine and Eleanor, your eyes pleading. You need help. You can barely stand, let alone navigate the city streets on your own. Catherine lets out a long, weary sigh. All right, she says, her voice rough but not unkind. Don't look at me like that. We'll get you there. She knows that your crisis today could be hers tomorrow. There is a grim solidarity in this shared vulnerability. The decision is made. It settles in the room with a heavy, final thud. You are going to intentionally subject yourself to an experience that is famously one of a common person's greatest fears. You are going to pay someone to hurt you in the hope that it will stop a greater hurt. Catherine helps use it up. The room swims, and you have to grip her arm to keep from fainting. The pain in your jaw screams in protest. Every pulse of your heart is an explosion of agony. You have to do this. You have to get the poison out. You have made your desperate decision. Now you just have to survive its consequences. Getting ready to leave is a slow, agonizing ordeal. Catherine helps you into your dress, her movements surprisingly gentle. You don't bother with the striped uniform of your trade. There will be no work today. You wear your plainest, oldest kirtler, the one you sleep in. Eleanor soaks a rag in cold water and presses it to your swollen jaw. The brief, cool relief is exquisite, but it vanishes the moment she takes it away. You need to pay for the service. You remember the single silver penny hidden under the floorboards. It was your emergency fund, your fantasy of a different future. This, you realize with a grim finality, is that emergency. You point weakly to the loose board. Catherine understands. She retrieves the coin and presses it into your hand. It feels heavy, like the price of a pound of your own flesh. Leaning heavily on Catherine, with Eleanor walking ahead to clear a path, you begin the journey. The moment you step out of the stew and into the morning light, the city assaults your senses. The sunlight is a physical blow, making you squint your eyes in pain. The noise of the street, the rumble of cartwheels, the shouts of vendors, the clang of a blacksmith's hammer, is a cacophony that vibrates directly in your aching jaw. The walk is a blur of misery. Every step on the uneven cobblestone sends a jolt of pain through your body. People stop and stare. They see your swollen face, your halting steps, the way you lean on your companion. They see a person in the grip of a dental agony, and their expressions are a mixture of pity, morbid curiosity, and a sort of superstitious fear, as if your pain were contagious. You are a walking spectacle of suffering. You are heading for a specific part of the city, away from the brothel district, towards the street where the craftsmen have their shops. You are looking for a very particular sign, a red and white striped pole. The pole, a symbol that will be known for centuries, signifies the shop of a barber surgeon. The red represents bandages. It's a stark, simple advertisement for a trade that is a bizarre mix of the mundane and the terrifying. These are the men who cut hair, shave beards, and also perform minor surgery, let blood, and most importantly for you, pull teeth. Why a barber, the division of medical labor in your time, is a source of endless confusion for future scholars. There are the university-trained physicians who diagnose and prescribe but rarely touch a patient. There are the apothecaries who mix and sell remedies. And then there are the barber surgeons, the craftsmen of the medical world, who do the bloody hands-on work. The church, for a long time, forbade clergy from performing procedures that involved cutting or bloodshed, creating a vacuum that the barbers, with their sharp razors and steady hands, were happy to fill. So, when you have a tooth that needs pulling, you don't go to a learned physician. He would simply look at you, declare you have an imbalance of humors, and charge you a fortune for the diagnosis. You go to the man with the pliers. You pass a baker's shop, and the warm, sweet smell of fresh bread, a smell you usually love, turns your stomach. You pass a tanner's yard, and the chemical stench makes you gag. The world is a hostile landscape, and you are just a small, shuffling creature of pain moving through it. Finally, Eleanor points. There, she says. Ahead of you, you see it, the striped pole, turning slowly in the breeze. It looks like a giant candy stick, a cheerful symbol for a house of horrors. The sign above the door has a simple, painted image of a razor and a tooth. No words are needed. You stop in front of the door, your courage failing you. This is the point of no return. The sounds from within are not reassuring. You can hear a low groan and then the sharp, confident voice of the barber. Your heart is pounding in your chest, a frantic drumbeat that competes with the throbbing in your jaw. You look at Catherine, your eyes wide with terror. "Come on," she says, her voice firm but not unkind. "We've come this far. It's better out than in." She tightens her grip on your arm. It's a simple, brutal logic, and she is right. The pain of the last 24 hours has been unbearable. The fear of what lies behind that door is immense, but the memory of the fever and the agony is stronger. Taking a shuddering breath, you let Catherine and Eleanor guide you forward. You push open the wooden door and step across the threshold, from the familiar misery of the city street into the specific, concentrated terror of the barber's terrible chair. The smell of medicinal herbs, old blood, and fear hits you immediately. The walk is over. The procedure is about to begin. The room you step into is small, and somehow even darker and more cluttered than the main room of the stew. The air is thick with a strange, cloying smell, a mixture of cloves. Yes, but also something metallic and something else, something vaguely like burnt hair. Bunches of dried herbs hang from the low, smoky rafters, their dusty scent doing little to mask the underlying grimness of the place. The walls are lined with shelves, and on them sits the unsettling paraphernalia of the barber surgeon's trade. On one shelf you see neat stacks of white linen for bandages, next to jars of dark, murky salves. You see sharp, gleaming razors for shaving and honed lancets for bloodletting. But your eyes are drawn with a kind of morbid fascination to another set of tools. They are laid out on a stained wood, brutal-looking iron pliers of various shapes and sizes, curved hooks, and a particularly nasty-looking device with a screw mechanism that you can't begin to guess the function of. It's a pelican, a tool for extraction, though you don't know its name. You just know it looks like an instrument of torture. In the center of the room, dominating the space, is the chair. It's a heavy, high-backed wooden chair, dark with age and use. The arms are worn smooth from the grip of countless terrified patients. There are dark stains on the wood that you try not to look at too closely. This is not just a piece of furniture. It's an altar of suffering, a stage for a one-act play of pain and relief. A man is just getting out of the chair as you enter. His face is pale, and he is holding a bloody rag to his mouth. He avoids your gaze, pays the barber a few coins, and stumbles out the door. A ghost who has just passed through the ordeal you are about to face. The barber surgeon turns to you. He is a large, beefy man with a leather apron stained with, well, you don't want to know. He has a surprisingly cheerful face and a booming voice. "Ah, another brave soul," he exclaims, rubbing his hands together. "What ails you, mistress?" You can't speak. You just point a trembling finger to your swollen jaw. "Uh-huh," he says, his eyes lighting up with professional interest. "A troublesome molar. Is it a mutinous tenant refusing to pay his rent in peace and quiet? Well, we'll soon evict him. Come, sit down. Don't be shy." His cheerfulness is somehow more terrifying than if he were grim and silent. It's the detached, professional enthusiasm of a craftsman who enjoys his work. You look to Catherine for support, but she just gives you a firm, encouraging push towards the chair. With legs that feel like they are made of water, you walk to the chair and sit down. The wood is cold and hard against your back. You grip the arms, your knuckles turning white. The worn wood does indeed feel smooth, polished by generations of desperate hands. The barber leans in close to examine you. He smells of cloves and sweat. "Open up," he commands. Hesitantly, you open your mouth. The movement sends a galaxy of pain exploding in your head. The barber pokes and prods with a metal tool, his touch surprisingly firm and precise. The cold metal against the inflamed gum is agony. "Oh yes," he mutters, his face close to yours. "A nasty bit of work, this one. The rot is deep, it's putrid. It has to come out, no two ways about it." This is the moment where the lines between different medical practices get incredibly blurry, a point of great contention for medical historians. Was this man a skilled practitioner or a dangerous quack? The answer is confusingly both. A good barber surgeon had a huge amount of practical, hands-on experience. He knew his anatomy from a purely functional perspective. He'd seen hundreds of cases like yours. But he had no concept of germ theory, no understanding of sterilization, and no access to effective anesthesia. His skill was purely mechanical. His work was a gamble, a trade of acute, terrible pain for the potential relief of a chronic one. Now he says, straightening up, there will be a bit of a pinch. Be a brave girl and hold still. The more you struggle, the harder it will be for both of us. A pinch. The word is so small, so inadequate for what you know is coming. You look past him, at the tray of brutal lion tools. He selects a pair of pliers, a vicious-looking instrument with a curved beak. He holds it up to the light for a moment, admiring it. This is it. The moment has arrived. You close your eyes and brace yourself, gripping the arms of the chair so hard you think your fingers might break. You can hear Catherine and Eleanor whispering encouragement from the corner of the room, but their voices sound 1,000 miles away. The world has shrunk to the size of this chair, this room, this man, and the cold iron he holds in his hand. The barber surgeon looms over you, the iron pliers in his hand feeling like an extension of his own brute force. A little wider now, he instructs, his voice low, calm, and that is utterly at odds with the terror of the moment. That's it, just a little wider. You force your mouth open as far as it will go, a movement that sends a nauseating wave of pain through your skull. You are delivering yourself up to him, vulnerable and helpless. He leans in, and you can feel his other hand, large and heavy, cup the back of your head, holding you steady. There will be no escape. He is surprisingly quick. He positions the cold, hard beak of the pliers inside your mouth. You feel the metal scrape against your other teeth as he finds his target. He clamps the jaws of the instrument down on the aching molar. The pressure is immense, a crushing, invasive force that makes you cry out, a muffled, strangled sound. The tooth is now a prisoner of the iron, and then he begins to pull. It is not a quick, clean yank. It's a slow, brutal process of rocking and twisting. He is breaking the tooth free from the ligaments that have held it in your jaw for your entire life. The pain is not a sharp lance anymore. It is a vast, all-consuming, world-ending cataclysm. It is a white-hot, blinding agony that obliterates all thought, all sense of time, all awareness of the room around you. Your entire universe is reduced to this single, incandescent point of pure, unadulterated suffering. You scream, but it's a sound trapped in your throat, a gargled desperate plea. Your body alters in the chair, your muscles straining against the barber's grip. Your hands, clenched on the armrests, feel like they're trying to crush the wood into dust. Tears stream from your closed eyes, hot and fast. In that moment of pure agony, a strange academic debate might flicker to life in a future historian's mind. What did people in your era do for pain relief? They'll find mentions of mandrake, of henbane, of opium. But these were rare, expensive, and dangerously unpredictable substances, more likely to kill a patient than to render them unconscious. For a common procedure like this, for a common person like you, there was nothing, absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. You do not faint. You are aware of every horrifying second. You feel a deep, sickening crunching sound that seems to vibrate through your entire skull. It's the sound of the root of your tooth beginning to fracture and splinter under the relentless pressure. The barber grunts with effort, sweat beading on his forehead. He is in a battle with a stubborn piece of your own body. Almost there, he mutters, more to himself than to you. Stubborn devil, aren't you? He gives a final mighty heave, a sudden violent twist that feels like he's trying to rip your entire jaw from your face. And then, with a wet, tearing, sucking sound, it's over. The tooth comes free. The release is so sudden, so absolute, that it's as shocking as the pain itself. The blinding, white-hot agony vanishes, replaced by a dull, throbbing, bleeding emptiness. For a single, surreal second, there is a strange and wonderful absence of the pain that has been your constant companion for days. The barber steps back, holding the pliers aloft. Clamped in its beak is the offending object, a blood-soaked molar with long, crooked, and terrifyingly black roots. "Ha!" he proclaims, triumphant. "There's the little beast. Look at the rot on that. No wonder it gave you such trouble." He shows it to you, a trophy from his battle. You stare at it through a blur of tears. It's a disgusting, horrifying little piece of you, the source of all your misery. The price of this relief is the silver penny that Catherine now presses into the barber's hand. 1 silver penny for this unspeakable ordeal. It seems both absurdly cheap and astronomically expensive. You have paid for his service not just with a coin, but with a piece of yourself, with a measure of suffering you didn't think it was possible to endure. He tosses the bloody tooth into a bucket with a clatter. The procedure is complete. The price has been paid. You have traded a chronic, maddening ache for an acute, brutal, and now thankfully finished agony. And in its place, a new sensation is beginning to fill your awareness, the warm, thick, coppery taste of your own blood. The world comes back to you in slow, hazy waves. The first thing you are aware of is the barber pressing a thick wad of linen into your mouth. Bite down on this, he commands, and don't spit, no matter how much you want to, let it rot. You comply, your jaw trembling with the effort. The linen immediately begins to soak up the blood that is pooling in the empty socket. The taste is overwhelming, a warm, metallic, and deeply nauseating flavor that coats your entire tongue. It's the taste of your own internal self, now on the outside. Catherine and Eleanor are by your side, their faces etched with a mixture of pity and relief. They help you out of the terrible chair. Your legs are shaky, unreliable. You feel dizzy, lightheaded, and profoundly weak. The adrenaline that surged through you during the ordeal has vanished, leaving behind a deep, bone-deep exhaustion. You feel hollowed out, as if the barber has pulled not just a tooth, but a piece of your soul along with it. You lean on them as they guide you to the door. The barber gives you a final, cheerful piece of advice. Rinse with salted water tomorrow, but not before. And stay away from the ale for a day or two. It angers the humors. It's a piece of practical, if medically dubious wisdom. Stepping back out into the street is a shock. The world seems too bright, too loud, too real after the focused, claustrophobic horror of the barber's shop. The ordinary sounds of the city, which were an agony on the way here, are now just a distant, muffled roar. Your entire being is focused inward on the bleeding, throbbing hole in your jaw and the sickening taste of iron in your mouth. The walk back to the stew is a silent, stumbling procession. You are in a state of shock, your mind a foggy landscape of phantom pain and the raw, physical reality of the wound. Every step is ajar, every sound an intrusion. You are a fragile, broken thing, being carefully carried back to your burrow. Other people on the street give you a wide berth. They see the bloody linen peeking from the corner of your mouth, the dazed, vacant look in your eyes, and they know you are on the other side of an ordeal they all fear. You have done battle with the demon of the tooth and have returned, wounded but victorious. Their glances are no longer just curious, they are tinged with a strange kind of respect. When you finally reach the brothel, the familiar sights and smells are both comforting and repellent. It feels like returning to a home you despise. The main room is quiet, the mid-morning lull having settled in. Matilda is sitting at a table, mending a tear in a piece of cloth. She looks up as you enter, her eyes immediately taking in your state. She sees the bloody rag, your pale face, the way you are clinging to the other women for support. Her expression is unreadable. It's not sympathy, but it's not anger either. It's the look of a manager assessing a piece of equipment that has just undergone a costly but necessary repair. So it's done, she says. It's a statement, not a question. You can only nod a tiny, weak movement. Go and lie down, she orders. Don't bleed on the good blankets. Use the old one. It's the closest thing to an expression of care you will get from her. It's a purely practical instruction, but it is also in its own way permission to rest. Permission to be sick. You have paid the price for this brief from your duties. Catherine and Eleanor help you up the stairs. They support the only thing keeping you from collapsing. They guide you to your pallet and help you lie down. The straw, which was a bed of torture last night, now feels like the softest feather bed imaginable. You are home in your own small corner of misery. You lie there, the world spinning gently around you. The taste of iron is relentless. You feel sick to your stomach. The hole in your jaw is a dull, throbbing abyss, a deep, resonant ache that has replaced the sharp, stabbing pain of the infection. It's a better pain, a cleaner pain, but it is pain nonetheless. You have survived, but as you lie there, drifting in undoubt of a shocked, shallow sleep, you know that this is not the end of a story. It is simply the end of a chapter. More complicated one is about to begin. You spend the rest of the day and the following night in a hazy, half-conscious state. The bleeding eventually slows, then stops, leaving the linen ward in your mouth a stiff, disgusting clot. The deep, bony ache from the extraction gradually subsides, replaced by a tender, swollen soreness. The fever is gone. The infection has been, quite literally, you survived. The next morning you feel human again. Weak, sore, and incredibly hungry but human. Catherine brings you a small bowl of thin, watery porridge, the first food you've been able to contemplate in days. You eat it slowly, carefully, tipping your head to the side to keep the food away from the raw, healing socket in your jaw. It's bland and unsatisfying, but it's fuel. With the immediate agony gone, a new awareness begins to dawn, a curiosity. You need to see the results of your ordeal. There is no mirror in your room, of course. Mirrors are a luxury for the very wealthy. But there is a way. You wait until the room is empty, then take the wooden bucket of water and place it on the floor where the light from the window is best. You kneel down, your heart starting to beat a little faster. You lean over the bucket and stare at your own reflection in the still dark water. The face that looks back at you is a stranger. It's you, but a distorted, battered version of you. Your cheek is still swollen, puffy, discolored bruise marking the site of the battle. Your eyes are hollow, shadowed with the memory of pain and fever. You look worn, older, like a piece of cloth that has been washed too many times. Then you force yourself to do it. You pull back your lips, baring your teeth to the watery reflection, and you see at the gap. It's a dark, shocking void in the landscape of your smile. A black hole where a large, important tooth used to be. It looks bigger, more conspicuous than you ever could have imagined. It's a permanent, undeniable alteration to your face. To your primary to love the trade. You stare at the reflection, a cold knot of anxiety tightening in your stomach. Up until now, your dental issues were your own private, hidden misery. You could mask the smell with parsley, numb the pain with a clove, hide the decay behind a carefully constructed smile. But this cannot be hidden. This is a public declaration of your recent trauma. This gap changes everything. It changes the way your smile looks. It changes the way you speak, a slight whistle now accompanying certain words. It changes the very architecture of your face. In your line of work, a pretty face and a charming smile are currency. They are essential components of the product you are selling. An attractive, complete smile suggests youth, health, and vitality, all desirable qualities. A smile with a gaping, dark hole in it suggests what sickness, poverty, a history of suffering. These are not things that clients are paying for. This is a professional crisis. Historians might study the physical effects of pre-modern dentistry, the risk of infection, the fracturing of the jaw, but they can rarely quantify the social and economic consequences of the cure. The permanent disfigurement, the impact on a person's livelihood, especially a person whose livelihood depends on their appearance. You think of Catherine, who so carefully covers the gap in her own front teeth. You always understood why she did it, but now you feel it in your gut. The shame of it, the self-consciousness, the constant awareness of the imperfection. You let your lips fall back into place, hiding the new reality of your mouth, but you can still feel the emptiness with your tongue, a constant physical reminder. The gap is a brand, a scar from a battle you won, but a scar nonetheless. It's a permanent mark of your ordeal, a testament to the pain you endured. But in the brutal, pragmatic world of the stew, it's not a badge of honor. It's a liability. It's a flaw in the merchandise. You have solved the immediate, life-threatening problem of the infection. But in doing so, you have created a new, long-term problem. You stand up, leaving the strange, bruised woman in the water behind. You have to go back to work soon. Meticulous patience will not last forever. But now you will be returning to the floor as a different person. You are the woman with the gap in her smile, and you have no idea what that will mean for your future. A few days later, the swelling has gone down, the soreness has faded to a dull, fan to make. Then Matilda has made it clear that your convalescence is over. It's time to go back to work. You stand before the bucket of water one last time, assessing the damage in the clear light of day. The gap is still a dark, startling void. Your smile, you realize, will never be the same. You put on the striped kirtler, the familiar, uncomfortable uniform of your trade. You tie the yellow cap under your chin. You are dressed for the part, but as you head downstairs to the main room, you feel a new and profound sense of dread. It's a different kind of fear from the one you felt when facing the barber's chair. It's a cold, economic anxiety. How will you do this now? You take your usual place on a bench in the corner, but you feel intensely self-conscious. You try to keep your mouth closed, your lips pressed together in a tight, unnatural line. When a man's gaze sweeps over you, you offer a hesitant, closed mouth that feels awkward and unwelcoming. For the first hour, no one approaches you. You watch as Agnes laughs with a client, her head thrown back, her smile wide and confident. You watch as Eleanor engages a merchant in conversation, her own dental flaws forgotten for the moment. You are invisible, a shadow in the corner, radiating an aura of damage and fear. Finally, a man sits down beside you. H.E.S. Young, a carter's boy by the look of his rough clothes, and he seems more nervous than you are. He tries to make small talk. You answer in monosyllables, acutely aware of the way the air whistles softly through the new gap in your teeth. You keep your hand near your mouth, a gesture you once saw as a sign of weakness in Catherine, but which you now understand completely. The boy, sensing your discomfort, soon gives up and moves on. Another failure. The anxiety in your stomach churns. This is your new reality. You have to relearn the most basic aspects of your job. How to smile. How to talk. How to laugh. You have to rebuild your professional persona around this new, unchangeable fact of your physical self. Later, an older man, a regular, sits with you. H.E.S. a kind, lonely widower who mostly just pays for a bit of conversation. He notices your reticence. "Are you well, mistress?" he asks. "You seem quiet today." There is no hiding it. You take a breath and decide on a different strategy. You give him a small, sad, but genuine smile, revealing the gap. "I have had a sorrowful time with a tooth, sir," you say, your voice soft. He peers at you, his expression not of disgust but of sympathy. "Ah," he says, nodding slowly. "A terrible business. My own father was plagued by it his whole life." And just like that, the connection is made, not through a performance of cheerful perfection, but through a shared understanding of common human suffering. He doesn't want the illusion of a carefree girl. He wants a moment of honest connection. You spend the next hour talking, and for the first time, you don't feel the need to hide. He leaves you with 2 coins and a kind word. It's a revelation. Perhaps the gap is not just a liability. Perhaps it can be something else. A key, of a sort. A way to unlock a different kind of interaction, one built on a foundation of shared vulnerability, rather than manufactured glamour. This is a question that will echo through your future. How do you navigate this world now? Do you learn to hide the gap, to become a master of the closed mouth and the carefully angled conversation? Or do you embrace it, use it as a part of your story, a way to connect with the men who are not looking for perfection, but for a reflection of their own flawed, painful life? Historians will never know the answer. They can analyze skulls in medieval graveyards and see the evidence of extractions, of abscesses, of lives lived with chronic dental pain. They can count the missing teeth, but they can never know how a woman like you adapted. They can't chart the subtle shifts in strategy, the psychological recalibration required to continue living and working in a body that has been permanently altered by pain and its brutal cure. As the evening wears on, you begin to experiment. With some men, you are quiet and reserved. With others, you risk a small, flawed smile. You are learning, adapting, evolving. You are a craftswoman, and your tool has been altered. Now you must learn the new ways to use it. You run your tongue over the smooth, healing gum of the empty socket. The physical pain is gone, but the ghost of it remains. The gap in your smile is a testament to your survival. It's a brutal, ugly, and undeniable part of you. But you are sitting in the smoky stew, in your striped dress, and you are working. You are chewing on the tough, gristly meat of your future, one day at a time. It's a future that will be different, harder, and more complicated, but it is a future. That is a victory. And so our story comes to a close, not with a grand finale, but with the quiet, tired resilience of a single soul settling back into the rhythm of her life. The sharp edges of the ordeal have softened, leaving behind a duller, more permanent mark. You can almost feel that sense of quiet resignation, a deep weariness that settles in the bones, heavier than any blanket. The world of the stew, with its noise and its smoke, begins to fade now, like a dream receding as you drift deeper, deeper into your own quiet slumber. The anxieties of that distant life, the coins, the clients, the ever-present take, they can all melt away. Now only the profound peace of this present moment, this comfortable darkness. Your own breathing is the only sound that matters now, a slow, easy rhythm carrying you gently on its tide away from all stories and into the silent, restful sanctuary of your own sleep. The concerns of the past are just whispers on the wind, and they cannot touch you here, in this safe and peaceful space. Let them go, let them all drift away. The final page is turned. If your eyelids are still not heavy, another story might be the final lullaby you need. If not, I wish you a deep and peaceful slumber. Good night.